So you've just bought your new well-housed camper van. How does it all work? It's going to be one of the first questions. So today we're going to go through everything on the van, give you an overview of how it all works, and also give you some maintenance tips. So let's take a closer look inside. And in case you're wondering, this is the Pudsey van that was featured on BBC's Children in Need. When you get to a campsite, one of the first things you probably want to do is put the roof up. It helps if you have a door open. Doesn't matter which one, as long as there's a door open, it allows air to rush in that is displaced when the roof is lifted up. It will make the roof lift up easier. So I'll show you how to release the catches. Right, the first thing to do to release the latches is just pull the strap down so it's free and out of the way. Then push in the clasp and pull it through a little bit, but not all the way, just so you've got a couple of inches free at the end. Do the same on both sides. With both catches released, you can push the roof up. One of the key things to watch for when you're putting your roof down is to check that the fabric doesn't get trapped in either the struts, the scissor mechanism, or pinched by the rubber seal. So when you put the roof down, make sure you push in, or rather pull in, the sides and the front of the canvas. We'll show you how that works from the inside of the vehicle. Okay, to put the roof down, the first thing you're going to want to do is put the roof bed down. As you can see, it's already down in this model. Don't try and pull it down with the roof. That's how the roof gets pinched in the sides. Don't forget to fold down the stalk lights and switch them off too. If you're tall like me, grab the handles and just start pulling it down on the handles. If you're a bit shorter, you can use these straps and pull it down on the straps. Because they're in a continuous loop. So pull it down, I'd say pull it down about halfway, then pull in the sides and also pull in the front like that. Once it's pulled in like that, you can pull it down a bit further. So once it's about halfway, so pull in everything, pull it down the rest of the way and let it drop down. Again, making sure these sides are in. You also want to make sure the fabric isn't anywhere near the handles or these metal clasps where it can rub holes in the material. So keep it next to soft padded trim and make sure nothing's trapped. So when you've dropped your roof down, what you want to check is you haven't got any fabric trapped in the rubber seal at any point. So just do a walk around your van and just check. If you're a bit shorter, you might want to stand on the step here so you can have a look down. Just go round the van. Once you're happy with that, then you can tighten the straps up. So with the fabric tucked out of the way, just pull the back bit of the strap down so that it's flush with there. Then press the catch in and just pull the cord strapping through until it's nice and tight. Make sure it's got some tension on it. And then just tuck this out of the way, up in the roof. And repeat for the other side. One of the things you want to do with the roof is make sure that the metal area that the rubber seal seats down on, both the side part and the front bit by the spoiler, is clear of leaves, debris and anything else that can collect in there. It's worth checking that about once a month or so, or once every 2 months, depending on where it's parked. One of the things to avoid is parking under trees if you can help it. You get leaves falling on the vehicle and getting stuck in the gaps, and you can get sap dripping on the paintwork. About once a year, you might want to reseal the roof fabric with something like Fabsil. Make sure you cover the plastic window at the front. You don't want any spray on that, and just spray it liberally all over, follow the instructions on the can. That will just help keep the water beading off it for longer. On a camper van, all the systems are powered by 12 volts, so managing your 12 volt supply is crucial. There's two 12 volt systems, the vehicle's 12 volt system and the van habitation area 12 volt system. Every time you press the key fob to open the vehicle, it powers up the vehicle's battery, and if it's not used for 10 days or so, it's a good idea to take it for a run just to recharge the battery. The alternators on these are very powerful and it will recharge it in about half an hour. Many people leave them plugged into mains hookup year round, and that's absolutely fine. To charge up the habitation battery, which powers the heating, the lights and all the sleeping and cooking facilities, you need to plug it into a mains hookup. It will recharge off the solar panel, but these are best viewed as a trickle charger, and in winter when there's low sunlight hours they don't always deliver that much current. So you'll need to plug it into a mains hookup. How do you do that? Well, grab a mains hookup cable. Here's one we prepared earlier. There's two plugs. Look for the one with the lift up lid. Lift it up, lift the lid up, plug it into the van. You always plug it into the van first and then into the wall socket. Now the other end, this end, needs to be plugged into your wall socket. You can get these handy adapters, which again, just plug in. These allow you to use a regular household 3-pin socket. The only other point to mention is don't leave your hookup cable coiled up. Always uncoil it. There's a heating effect with these coils and they have been known to cause fires if they're running at full tilt or wound up. So always keep them fully uncoiled when you're charging or on a campsite hookup. When you want to remove the mains hookup lead, always unplug it from the wall or the mains hookup bollard first before you unplug it from the van. Coil the cable up neatly, and it's a good idea to keep it in a bag or keep it somewhere safe and protected so the wire doesn't get any nicks in it. These are quite tough wires, but you still need to take care of them. In terms of mains electricity, you've only got mains electricity to the 3-pin socket inside when you're plugged into a mains hookup. So at the moment we've got no hookup lead, so that plug won't be active inside the vehicle. All the 12 volt systems on the habitation side of the vehicle are powered by the leisure battery. That's recharged by plugging into mains hookup. It's also recharged by the solar panel, but that doesn't put as much voltage in as plugging directly into the mains. Before you go away on your holiday, it's a good idea to switch the fridge on the day before, or at least a few hours before, so it can be getting down to temperature. Once you get on the campsite, the first thing to do, switch on the main power unit. Now here you can check your leisure battery voltage, it's 13.1 in this case, as well as your vehicle battery. And it also allows you to switch on your water pump, and this one here is for your awning light. Now once the main power unit is activated, these switches down here which control the lighting all become active. You've also got your 240 volt socket, 12 volt socket and a USB port. Now the 240 volt socket, this will only work when you're plugged into mains hookup. So the first thing to check is the charger unit switched on? Now as you can see, when you press the 1 it lights up. If it doesn't light up, you might have a problem with your socket to your house, so you need to check that. Plug a radio into it, phone charger, table lamp, whatever, just make sure that works. Then plug your mains cable into it. Over here you've got reverse polarity. This sometimes illuminates when you're abroad on certain campsites. It's not a thing to worry about. All your appliances will work fine on reverse polarity, but make sure you unplug anything you've got plugged into a main socket overnight, just for safety. In here, in this compartment, you have all your mains RCDs. These are circuit breakers that trip if you have any issues. Now the first thing to do is once a month or so, test it works. Press this button, and as you can see, it cuts out and goes to green. Green means it's safe for electrical contractors to work on it. It doesn't mean green for go. And you can also see that the mains power has cut off because this light's gone off. So switch that off again, power it up, and as you can see, we've got power on. So check it every now and again. That's your master cutout. These other RCDs protect each individual circuit. So for example, sockets, extra sockets, boiler charger. I think on this particular van, the last two aren't active. It's just the first one that's active. If any of these are in the down position, i.e. showing green, they're not powered up. So they should all be in the up position to have power. You'll see it also has 1 marked on it, and it has 0 marked on there. Not very clearly, but it is marked on. If all these are in the up position and you've got power, all your main sockets and appliances should be working fine. Also in this cupboard, you've got all your 12-volt system. Your leisure battery powers all the habitation equipment of the vehicle when you're not on a hookup. It also powers it when you are on a hookup. It's just recharged by the 240-volt system. The first thing to check, if you don't have any power and you check the fuse under the bonnet, then start looking at the fuses on this panel. So as you can see, they're all labelled quite clearly. 20 amp leisure battery, 20 amp vehicle battery, permanent supply, water pump, auxiliary, which is probably fridge. All these fuses have a rating on them. It's clearly labelled, so 20 amp for the leisure battery, 10 amp here for the water pump. Make sure you stick to these fuse ratings. So check all those fuses if there's a problem and things aren't working as a first step. To fill up your water tank, open the sliding door. On the back of the cabinet you'll find this water fill point. It does have a lock on because it's mainly designed for external use, but I wouldn't bother locking it. It's not actually needed when it's inside. To fill it up, you can either run a hose directly into this, or you can get caps with as optional extras that have a built-in hose lock connector that you can just screw on. And then when you've done filling, you'll know when you're done filling because water will start dribbling out of here or dribbling out of an overflow underneath the vehicle. So as soon as you start seeing the water bubbling, just pop the cap back on, water tank's full. Underneath the van, you'll notice 2 water drain points. This one is for draining your fresh water tank. This one is your wastewater, i.e. the water that comes out your sink. Just flip it up. You can put a hose on the end, or you can just have it collecting in a container, but it must go into an outlet. That will just be your sort of soapy washing up water, that kind of thing. The gas system on these vehicles is a refillable gas system, so I'll show you how the filling point on that works in a minute. But if you need to access the bottle, you just open this locker here. It's a sealed locker. There's various gas taps in there. Or if you've got the boot full of kit, there's a handy hatch. You can go in there and access it that way. This is a completely sealed locker with a dropout vent in the bottom because gas is heavier than air. And it's very important that when it's in use, it's latched shut. Traditional camper vans, you had to mess about lugging gas bottles about. But with the Gaslow system, you don't need to do that. You just need to fill them up at a petrol station that sells LPG. This is the filling point here. You twist it off. It's kind of like a bayonet plug cap. And inside, you'll find this nozzle. This is a UK nozzle, and any UK pump nozzle will fit this. You'll also notice it has a threaded section in the middle. This allows for adapters to be screwed in so you can use different LPG nozzles in different European countries. About 3 nozzles can be bought in a pack for about 30 quid, and that will cover the whole of Europe. To turn on the gas, simply open the locker door or unscrew the circular hatch at the back. Then turn the gas on. Don't forget to replace the hatch cover so that the locker's sealed. You'll notice in this locker you've got a couple of shut-off taps. At the moment they're in the open position. This is the flow to your barbecue point. That's to shut off the flow to your barbecue point. So if you're not using the barbecue, have it in the down position. This one's in the flow position at the moment. Is the main valve from the gas bottle. So if you want to shut that off, you can shut it off there. All flow valves work in the same way. They point in the direction of flow. So if they're parallel with the direction of flow, gas is flowing. So now gas is flowing if the gas bottle's turned on. On a well house, you also get this handy external barbecue point. Connect a 2 metre or so length of hose to your barbecue to this. Make sure this is just connected directly to your whatever gas appliance you're using. It doesn't need a regulator, the regulator's in the van. And then make sure this is connected with your gas off. Plug it in, rotate it downwards, and that will go off to your barbecue. Then turn your gas on and the feed tap onto the barbecue and you'll be good to go. When you finish barbecuing, switch the gas off, unplug the connector. To set up your awning, it's quite simple. First thing you need to go and grab is the winding handle. That's located in the boot. It's a crank, so you just set up the crank. The next thing, open the side door. It just stops you damaging the paint if you slip with the winder. There's a slot up here, so wind it into the slot and just start to wind your awning out a little bit. You need to make sure the sliding door's shut as well so that it doesn't catch on any of the mechanism. Once it's slid out a little bit, about a foot or so, you need to pull the legs out and just start putting the legs down. Once it's wound out about a foot, pull out the end section of the leg. It unlatches the middle clip. Drop the leg down. You've got a latch here to unscrew that just allows the leg to drop down. It's got a little foot on the end of it, so just keep that square and lock it off. And do the same on the other side. And then the idea now is to walk the awning out so it's supported by the legs. We're not too worried much about the angle at this stage. We just want to get the awning safely out. So carry on winding it, a little bit at a time. And then just walk the legs out a little bit. Do that until it's fully out. You need to make sure it's got a bit of tension in this top thing. You can wind it out too far, so just wind it out until it's still got a bit of tension there. If it does go a bit slack, just wind it in a little bit. Once you've got it fully wound out, then you can adjust the height of the legs. Once the awning is fully unwound, you need to adjust the legs. The best idea is to have them quite high to start off with, and just check this strut clears the door. As long as it clears that door, that's fine. It's the same on the other side. You have to be careful of the sliding door. So as you can see here, the sliding door does clear that strut. so that's fine. But check that first before you slam the door back and scratch the paint. If you do need to adjust the height, these legs can be adjusted in all sorts of different heights. It's a good idea to not necessarily have it level, have it with a slight angle, because that, if it does rain, it helps the water run off and it doesn't balloon in the middle. So it's a good idea to have it at a slight angle. The other point to make is you can get storm straps for these awnings. It's well worth fitting a storm strap just to keep it stable. In high winds, you're best off winding them fully in. So you do need to watch the forecast. You know, if the wind is going to be over 20 mile an hour or so, it's a good idea to get them wound in. The legs can be pegged down. They've got little holes in them as well. So it's a good idea to peg those down on any pitch or weight them down with a heavy object if you're on hard standings. Right, I'll show you how to wind it back in now. If it's raining and there's no option, you might have to roll the awning up to put it away if you're leaving a campsite on that day. But if you have wound it up wet, make sure you dry it out as soon as you possibly can. What you don't want to do is put the awning away wet and leave it wet for long periods of time. So always put it away fully dry if you're leaving it for any length of time. So lock it off at the ends. Make sure the leg is locked off and then push it into the latch in the middle. Check it, you shouldn't be able to pull the rail towards the van. It should be held in place. You don't want it to drop off when you're winding it out because otherwise it could scratch the paintwork. Make sure each awning leg is fully clipped in place to the rail before you wind the cassette fully home. The tools for the spare wheel are located under the rear travel seat behind the aluminium ladder, so move that out of the way as a first step. Then if you remove the jack, if your locking wheel nuts have covers on them, you'll need this tool to remove them. You'll also need the spare wheel wrench. Okay, once you've got the tools out, lift up this tab here, put your wheel brace in it and turn it anti-clockwise to lower the spare wheel. Once the spare wheel is wound down a certain distance, you can push up underneath the wheel and release this hook. Then you can lower the whole spare wheel cradle to the floor. With the whole cradle on the floor, it's just a question then of wiggling the wheel out. To get the alloy wheels off, you'll need to use this locking key. Rotate it until it locates on the locking pins. Then loosen your wheel nuts. They will be stiff. With the wheel nuts loose, you can then jack the vehicle up at the appropriate spot as detailed in your owner's manual. With all the wheel nuts removed, the wheel can be removed. If it's stuck, kick it into the van, never from behind the wheel. To put it back, just push it all the way up and then lift it up and reattach the hook. To reattach the cradle, wind the handle in a clockwise direction until you feel resistance, then put the cover down. Don't forget to put the roof down before you set off, and pull it down halfway. Make sure nothing is trapped in the mechanism of the roof or the latches before you pull it all the way home. Then make sure it's securely latched before you set off. When you leave the campsite, you want to switch off the gas bottle here. You can do it by opening the door at the side, or if you've got stuff in the boot, you can come in through this handy hatch that they've built in. Unplug the mains hookup from the bollard, then from the van. Before you set off, make sure the travel seat is in its locked position. So pop the two catches down until you hear them click and lock, and just check the seat is rigidly fixed in place before you drive off. Don't forget to swivel the passenger seat forwards too. Make sure the fridge is firmly shut and everything inside is secure. The hob needs to be cool before you put the lid down, and don't forget to put the sink lid down too. Switch off 12-volt power. It's also a good idea to empty the freshwater tank and chemical loo before you leave the campsite. When your vehicle's not being used over winter layout, it's a good idea to pop the roof up every now and again, just give it a check over, and also check your major systems are working. So, for example, check your electrics go on, check the fridge is working. Also, you might want to run a bit of gas through your gas burners, just check they're all fine. You also want to check your heaters working, and just make sure, just get it to run through a cycle and warm up the interior. During winter layup, it's a good idea to put the fridge on its ventilation part of the latch. This allows air to circulate inside the fridge and stops musty smells. This is the fridge in the normal locked position, sitting flush. But if you open it up, you'll see this little plastic catch here. If you get your thumb behind that and slide it across, they can be quite stiff if they haven't been used, but slide it across. This is in the ventilation setting. And just latch it, and it keeps it open, so you get a bit of airflow, you don't get any musty fridge smells. You only use this in during winter layup. And then to get it back into summer setting, just push it back the other way. All the 12-volt systems on the habitation side of the vehicle are powered by the leisure battery. That's recharged by plugging into mains hookup. It's also recharged by the solar panel, but that doesn't put as much voltage in as plugging directly into the mains. And also, if it's during winter when the light might not be as bright and there isn't as many daylight hours, it puts out less charge. So particularly during winter layup, it's much better to plug it into mains hookup just to keep it all topped up. Power is everything on these vans, and it doesn't do any harm to keep it permanently plugged in when the vehicle's at home or not in use. Just one item you want to make sure you do is clean the solar panel so it maintains maximum efficiency. To do that, just use a sponge or a wash mitt, nothing abrasive, no abrasive chemicals, and just give it a good old wipe over. You'll also need to keep an eye on your batteries, but it's a good idea to plug the van into mains hookup. You can get adapters that will allow a mains hookup lead to plug into a normal 3-pin socket, and it's a very good idea to just keep your vehicle powered up if you're going to lay it up over winter. Electrical power controls almost everything on these vans, and any issues tend to be caused by low voltage, so keeping the batteries topped up is critical to all camper vans. It's a good idea to just put your fridge on every now and again, just to check it's all still working. It's a good idea to start up your diesel heater every now and again too. If you are planning on leaving your vehicle for any length of time, it's a good idea to switch off the cab lights so that they don't always come on when you open the doors. It also avoids you accidentally leaving them in the wrong setting and flattening the battery. Don't forget to switch off the light in the boot either. In winter, you do need to drain it down to avoid it freezing. As the tank on this vehicle is inside the van, it's fairly unlikely, but it's best just to drain it down over winter to avoid that possibility. Underneath the van, you'll notice two water drain points. This one is for draining your fresh water tank. This one is your wastewater, i.e. the water that comes out your sink. Just flip it up. You can put a hose on the end, or you can just have it collecting in a container, but it must go into an outlet. That will just be your sort of soapy washing up water, that kind of thing.